What's going on, everybody? Welcome to Week 14, Bobby Fi with Eric Sheetshaver and Jake Rohde. We are going to be talking about this 10-game slate. It's one of I think it might be the last 10-game slate of the year, so I have more games, and you're missing a lot of studs, and it's interesting to see how the builds are coming along because of it. You also have the super chalk, the three cheap running backs, and then you've got two expensive running backs that are going to be chalky. So I'm going to bet 95% of lineups are going to end up with running backs in the flex. That's sort of my first look. Sheets, why don't you say your overall thoughts, and then we'll go to Rohde, and then we'll start with position.
Yeah, I mean, you have those three cheap running backs that basically, I mean, if you play two or three of them or whatever, allows you to play pretty much whatever you want.
Yeah.
So lineup construction is pretty easy. If there is such a word. But at the running back position, if you do play, for example, all three of them, then you can't play Barkley or Kamara for that matter.
Mm-hmm.
And if you play two out of three, then you can't play one of Kamara or Barkley. And if you reduce your decision making to those decisions, then you miss out on other running backs, which who knows? Who's to say that this week Devon Achane doesn't score 30?
Right.
So it's a pretty, I want to say straightforward slate, but it's a slate where everybody's gonna. If you even look at content too, I mean, this is one of those incredible slates where you'll see people go down and recommend 20 teams. I mean, you can really make cases for all of it. So I'm going to use the Sims. I'm going to try to screw around a little bit and see what I can't come up with.
Yeah, it's interesting because I actually thought just when I was hand building, I was like, well, can I try and get a lineup with Kamara? It's really hard to do with Kamara, Barkley, and Achane, and just forget all the other three just to see what happens. It's pretty rough. It doesn't leave me with a whole lot left. But something I thought you could play three actually chalky good plays, and I don't think anyone's playing all three of those guys together really. Rohde, what are your overall thoughts, and then we'll get into positions here.
Yeah, I agree with what Sheet said. You got to make a decision. Running back's kind of loaded now with these three value plays and how you play it, and you got some really good low-owned guys in there as well to get to that we want to play. So yeah, I'm kind of taking that, trying to decide which way I want to go today with that running back situation. So yeah. It's just
you want to get right to that. I mean, do you have a preference between those three? It's not just about those three, but I mean,
yeah, Charbonnet is my highest one. I don't like the other two actually. He rates out the best. Guerrero, might be more passing in that game. That's why Jennings is popular, and then Braylon Allen. That could be they could be down in that game too. So just I don't know. I like Charbonnet a lot today. He's my favorite.
Yeah, and he's my favorite too. And then when I think about it, I go, well, Arizona's given up 3 touchdowns in the last 6 weeks. That's my only fear. You know what I mean? I'm like, oh, okay, that's my favorite guy, and he's against a team that literally cannot seem to put up any points on them. What about you, Sheets? Do you have a preference?
See, I don't have as much of a preference between those three as the projections would lead me to. I think you're really splitting hairs, and I mean, you're splitting hairs around a one or 2 points projection. It's really just about getting into the end zone, I guess. Mm-hmm. And if Charbonnet does end up the chalkiest of the three, I don't think you're supposed to do that. I think you're supposed to just either get equal amount of all three of them, or essentially let the Sims just kind of work for you. The one advantage that, and this is something you're not going to want to do, but that playing Charbonnet allows you to do is, as opposed to the other two, is that you could swap off later.
Yep.
If you don't like what's going on, and for people that say, oh, there's nothing to swap onto, but believe me, there's stuff that you can do in those late games.
Well, yeah, you got the Garendo. I like the late games. That's one thing I was gonna, and I never started off, but I'll start off with quarterback just because you brought up the late game part of it. And I think it's true. First of all, I really feel like quarterbacks, I'm starting to treat like defense. It's a little bit outside of just the full-on stacks or whatever. I just don't want to have 30% of basically anybody when it's such a negligible, and if you don't get the touchdown variance on your side. What I've got right now is again, they're all going to be afternoon games for my favorite ones. I've got Purdy and Geno as my two highest owned, followed by Stafford and Josh Allen. And after that, I get to Will Levis, Tua, Darnold, I have some Drew Lock, some Caleb, but most of it's going to be in the afternoon. So I think my lineups are going to look a lot different by the afternoon than they are this morning.
So I have a conceptual question. I don't want to hijack and go different directions.
No, that's fine.
But conceptually, I want to think about it this way. So let's assume. I mean, listen, all three of those guys are going to be played to some degree, right? Like Allen, Charbonnet, and Garendo.
Yeah.
I guess my first question is which passing game would you play as a pivot off the running back? So if you wanted to do that. So first of all, with Charbonnet, it seems pretty logical, and I'm getting some of this anyway, to play some Geno with Metcalf and JSN, either part of a 3-man, you know what I mean, or to fade Charbonnet and just play the other two. I think people might do that. I think it makes some sense. And also on the other side, the other one, the Garendo. I mean, if you don't want to do that, or if you want to do that in conjunction with whatever, you could play Purdy with Kittle and Jennings, or Kittle with even Debo. Jennings is going to be very popular.
Mm-hmm.
So people are going to do that. But maybe you play something like Debo or Kittle. But I think that what very few are going to do is to go to the Jets passing game. If as opposed to playing Braylon Allen, and it's this, nothing has really changed over there, right? If anything, I think Lazard is out or whatever it is. So if anything, it's even better for those two receivers, Wilson and Adams. So you could do that. So that is one way to do it. Then this is all hand building stuff. Like if you play with the optimizers with the Sims, you might get it anyway if you try to leverage. But if you're trying to conceptualize what lineups might be worth doing, I think that playing the passing games, either in part of a 3-man stack or completely fading the running back in those lineups, I think makes some sense.
Yeah, and that's it's interesting you bring that up, because me and Rody were having that, just talking really briefly pre-show about that, just that I'm getting all the San Francisco and all the Debo and Purdy stacks because it's a pivot off of Garendo, and I'm getting all the Geno stacks, which is a pivot. Although I think you could play Geno with Charbonnet more than I'd want to play Purdy with Garendo personally, just because Charbonnet is a good pass catcher. But yeah, it is that seems to be what the Sims are even giving you, are those pivots off of the chalky running game, at least for me, especially because I didn't enter a minimum percentage on Geno or Purdy today, and they're my two highest owned quarterbacks. So it's obviously trying to tell me to that's a pivot off of the running game there. What about you, Rody? What do you think?
Yeah, I actually got some Rodgers, and I just ran a Sims build with my pool, and I did get Rodgers, my fourth guy. I got Geno, Jameis Winston, and Russell Wilson in there too. A couple guys I like in that Cleveland and Steelers game. I did get a lot of Aiden O'Connell though. I'm not sure on that. I did build a couple teams with him earlier.
He's everywhere, right?
He's popping a lot at that price tag. I think it's more the price, but
yeah,
the Sims really like him, it seems here.
I mean, again, you have a pretty condensed target share.
Yeah, Myers and Bowers. Yeah, so yeah, it's pretty two guys to go to. So.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
that makes sense. So, Sheets, is there anybody else you have a quarterback that's because what I wanted to do when I just saw this is I want to force in, and by the end of the day, I think I'm going to end up with in my top 5 owned quarterbacks will be Josh Allen and Jalen Hurts, just because their upside is so much higher than everybody else's, and we actually have enough value at running back to do that. If you wanted to go a little bit different, so that's something that I've been I'm going to try to force in. What about you?
I'm not much of a forcer nowadays, but so I don't know if I would get to those guys unless I would just get to them anyway. It's and each time I try to do this, like Rody was saying, I mean, you get to all this freaking O'Connell, which is a little, I mean, I won't say scary, but I mean, it is what it is. And like you said, it depends on whether you go like top down or bottom up. So, Bobby, if you start with the idea that you want to play Buffalo in the Eagles, you're automatically getting different than all the people that are just cranking the Sims out or whatever. So that certainly makes some sense.
I don't think I'll do it with necessarily even doing with my exposures, but I always like to hand build or hand pick at least a couple differences in my big buy-ins. Okay. And that is something that I thought about for the big buy-ins that makes some sense. You have a pretty high floor and a very high ceiling for both Allen. And I like that Rams-Bills game. It's the highest total on the slate. And the fact that no one's really playing that much of it makes me really want to go there. In fact, Kyron Williams is an interesting pivot off of those other guys, which we'll get into running back in a minute. But that's the other upside running back that no one's really talked about because you've got all these other things, and he's going to be like 2% owned. Whereas if you didn't have this value, he probably ends up his normal 15 or 20%. All right,
other guys you could play. I mean, I hate to say you could play anybody, but I was getting a bunch of Kyler Murray as well. Mm-hmm. So I mean, everything's it's a shorter slate. And you can play anything, so everything's kind of in play. Unfortunately,
I'm curious how the Kyler stacks work out because I like to generally play Kyler only with like one, just because he has the rushing upside. But you do have, if you play Harrison and McBride, I mean, that's a pretty high upside stack. But then again, Michael Wilson's got a lot of tips, so you could go low and play Wilson and McBride. So I've just been kind of messing around with that idea too, because I did consider that a little bit.
Yeah, I like that game a lot too. I have Murray in one of my bigger buy-ins, I think, and then I like Geno and that whole game I'm on.
But as Bobby said, and Bobby and I talked about last week. I mean, it always seems like a good game, and next thing you know, Arizona plays every game 13-10. I mean,
yeah, exactly right. It's like 16-13, or it's going to somehow be like the weird 38-35 game. But and they played the low scoring one last time, so maybe this is the one indoors that they get to really shoot out. All right, Rody, start us off at running back. What are you getting to the most there? I know we talked about it a little bit, but who are the highest on?
Kamara projects the best for me. I really like him. He's going to be chalky too, but we do have the 3 lower owned running backs, so I don't know. Maybe it spreads out a little bit more than we think now. I think getting to some Achane at lower ownership is a good play. And I really like James Conner. I said I like that Arizona Seattle game a lot today. I like Najee Harris in the Pitt Cleveland game a little bit as well. A couple lower owned guys that I like to get to and pivot off the chalky guys. I'm not as much on the Bucky Irving. I'm more on the Buck side passing. And then really that's it. Besides the 3 chalky guys, I'm really condensed in a lot of those high end guys. Charbonnet. I do have some Bijan at about 10-11%. I matched the field with him. And yeah, those are the main guys. I'm just going to spread it out. Play those guys I like at the top, and then rotate in the cheap guys so that we like. So
that makes sense. Sheets, how about you? How about what are your exposures looking like right now?
I don't know what the exposure is going to look like, but aside, not yet. But as far as pivots off of those 3 guys, I would say 5 guys, right? Because the 3 cheapos plus Kamara and Barkley, I guess, right? I all my builds that I've tried to run so far. It's almost impossible for me to get Barkley for some reason. I'm like the most I've had of Barkley in any build I've had is like 4%. I don't know why, who, or what, but that's just the way it is. So again, it depends on how you start. If you start with say, hey, I want 30% Barkley, for example, it like changes everything for me at least.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I push back, but I think that what's his name, the guy you just mentioned, Rody. I think Bucky Irving is awesome. I don't mean like necessarily like a smash play today, although I think he might be. I think he just really is taking over there. I think Rashad White doesn't exist over there anymore. And I think that I don't know. And the only problem is he was a little banged up. So, I mean, right up until like yesterday, they weren't sure whether he was going to play. So that kind of restricts that a little bit. But I like him. I like the Najee Harris. I think you mentioned that, Rody, him a little bit, especially with Cleveland stacks. I like that. Pretty much, like, again, depending on how many lineups you play, you could get to a lot of different running backs along with the chalk.
Yeah, I agree. I have Charbonnet as like clear. I feel pretty good about the chalk, and there's not really anything to mess with in the backfield. The one I feel the worst about is, well, look, and it's not the worst is it's all relative. I don't like hate him or anything, but I think Braylon Allen has the highest bust potential. And I also think that there's explosiveness, there's upside, but he's a kid still. He's very young. There's a chance that I could see them, letting some of the other guys just to get some of the work. And like you said, I think the passing game is kind of an interesting pivot. So I have it Charbonnet, then Kamara, Barkley, basically the same with Kamara and Barkley, then Garendo, then Allen, and I'm getting a little more Najee Harris than I even feel comfortable with, but I'm okay with it. It's it's a good situational spot, especially if you're playing the Cleveland side at all. The one who the Sims kept trying to give me is DeAndre Swift, and I would have just said, okay, I don't like that play. I'm just going to exit out. There's too many good running backs in this slate. But it's another one of I have so many afternoon games. I can also make those pivots off of that later. So I might end up with 0 of DeAndre Swift, but I do have him as a pivot currently. And it's due to San Francisco's just been torched by the run game over the last like 7 weeks, like torched. So I kind of get where it's coming from. And then I've got A-Chain as my next highest owned.
Well, to piggyback off of that a little more, the reason why is Roshan Johnson, I think, is out.
Yeah.
And he got like an inordinate amount of the goal line work.
Mm-hmm.
So if you now open up the goal line work to DeAndre Swift, I think that's going to naturally increase his upside at his median and all of it. So I'm not surprised that getting a little bit of the DeAndre Swift is showing up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and tough. He doesn't. He's, no matter what, he's still never like a between the tackles guy, but he's explosive on the outside. And like I said, they've been gashed all season long on this. Just real quick before we get to wide receiver, I wanted to mention that I was going to be in love with Malik Neighbors, but this coach speak and everything about him not being shut down but being limited and all this stuff, I feel a little nervous about it. So that was one I was going to be very high on. I'm curious if you ended up with any of them, Sheets, and what else you like at wide receiver.
I didn't really look at that yet, but what was the news on him?
Just they said that he's likely to be like they'll likely limit him. They're not shutting him down for the year yet. Is the thing, but they're flirting. It sounds like they're going to possibly be like, I don't know, maybe limiting him in plays wise.
Well, I mean, you want to have some fun. I mean, the Giants are an underdog, right?
Yeah.
So, want to go play one of the other Giants receivers just for fun?
That's the only problem is I don't like any of the other receivers.
Well, I mean, you can kind of force yourself to like him now. It's like if he's not going to be playing a full workload, I don't know.
Yeah, I think Darius Slayton is kind of interesting. If let's say he was out, I would be interested in Darius Slayton. Wandale Robinson will get looks either way. I don't know if I can do the Jalen Hyatt thing, but I mean, worse things have happened. But yeah, I think that's kind of interesting. Maybe going to Slayton would be my favorite way to get Strange. And I know he's banged up. I mean, I know Neighbors is banged up too, but like it's also just worrisome because they have nothing to play for. It's a rookie. It's a part of your future of your franchise. Always a scary time of year to be playing those kind of guys, in my opinion. All right, so I
keep getting all this freaking O'Connell and Jacoby Myers business, and Brock Bowers. This is going to be like mega chalk, isn't it?
O'Connell, yeah, those guys will all be really popular.
Yeah,
pretty sure about that. I'm gonna force the Slayton thing. So that's your highest. So where are you at with like the San Francisco guys? Because I ended up with my highest 2 owned receivers being Jennings and Samuel right now.
Yeah, I mean, right now I would get all the. Yeah, I mean, look at all this chalk. I got to do something about this. Jacoby Myers right now, I would have like 43%, like 35% Jawan Jennings. Then Metcalf, Drake London somehow. Okay, that's something sort of different, I guess. What are the wide receivers? Okay, so and this is part of like the easy thing to build. Mike Evans is going to be just ultra logical with these Vegas things. I don't know. I don't really know what I want to do, Mr. Bobby. I'd love to get different in some way. You know when you could play
Shakir.
I guess. Yeah. What I was going to say is just go right back to these Pittsburgh guys.
That's interesting.
Maybe go right back to Pickens and Freiermuth or something with Wilson. No one's expecting Wilson like that, right? I don't know.
Yeah, and that's actually a really good point because the Cleveland games every Jameis game can be wild. You know what I mean? We just know what happens. Why wouldn't we go on the other side of that, especially when we just saw finally the ceiling thing? I think that's kind of an interesting way to go instead of playing Najee. Like, let's play Pickens and Wilson and see what happens. I think that's interesting. How about you, Rody? What are you getting currently at?
Yeah, if I let the Sims build my 5-5-5 lineups, I had a Geno stack with Charbonnet, DK, JSN, and then I had a Russell stack with Austin and Pickens.
Well, there you go.
Najee was in the Geno one with Steelers defense. So
now we're getting somewhere.
It really likes those lineups when I look at the Sims, but there's a lot of guys I do like. I talked about the Murray game. Marvin Harrison's kind of low owned. I'm really getting a lot of him today. Even Pickens is low owned at that 6% I'm seeing. I like that. a lot. AJ Brown, you want to pay up in that big game. He's only like 8% I'm seeing. 8,100 on DK. I don't mind that at all. I'm curious on Bobby. He was talking about that Buffalo game a little bit. If he was doing Stafford doesn't look that high owned, and his pieces aren't very owned. 11 and 13%. Not terrible, but I know he wants to play the Josh Allen, but you could stack the Rams with double stack. I don't mind that. Run it back with like Kincaid or James Cook or Shakir in that game that you like. So yeah, I kind of like those options. I know the Sims was pumping a little bit of Caleb Williams and like DJ Moore, Keenan Allen type stuff at low ownership a little bit I seen earlier. And then Jordan Addison a little bit low owned against Jefferson too at 7%. I like that. So just getting a lot of those like lower owned pieces and you're mixing those guys in your lamps. I like a lot today.
Well, let me ask you this. Instead of thinking about the players or whatever, are you doing anything with your stacks? In other words, are you like limiting to QB +2, QB +1? Are you doing anything with that? Are you allowing yourself to have naked quarterbacks? Are you just like letting the Sims just kind of guide you and doing whatever? It's only a 10-game slate, so it's not as important to have full stacks, I don't think.
I usually don't like those full stacks like the one that gave me with Geno, Charbonnet, JSN, DK. I usually only do like QB +2. So I got to debate whether I do Charbonnet, DK, or.
Yeah, I really like those builds in the smaller fields.
In the 4 ones, so the 555,
I do actually. I really like those.
They have been winning too, so I have seen a lot of those type builds.
Absolutely, I agree. But I built my first hand build on FanDuel was Josh Allen with no receivers. I don't think we need to play receivers with Josh Allen, and he could put up 30 and have nobody get there. But you can run it back literally with the Rams guys, whether it's Nakua and Kupp or whether it's Nakua, Kupp and Williams, or Williams and Nakua. That's the way I would build those specific lineups by hand if I was going to. As of right now, most of my stacks though is my highest stack is +2 with no run back, and then everything else is mostly correlated until I get to like +1 with no run back, +3 with no run back. But those are like 5%ers.
Mine actually mimics that exact same thing. QB +2, no run back is my highest on here.
Yeah. But overall, I do have run backs in a little more than half of my lineups right now, but actually more than that, about 65%. I have Jennings and Samuel, as I mentioned, as my highest owned receivers currently. And I don't really care because I'm going to be editing these. I like the Seattle receivers. I have some interest in Harrison from Arizona. I have interest in the Bears if DJ Moore's a go. So I've got a lot of this afternoon stuff, but really may look completely different. So Jennings, Samuel, and Metcalf are my 3 highest owned receivers. And then Smith and Jigba is my 5th highest owned receiver. In between is Brian Thomas Jr. I don't like that Tennessee doesn't really give up big plays to wide receivers. It's kind of a little worrisome, so I might lower that a little bit. And then I get to the Evans, Myers, really like Ridley, and then both of the Rams receivers I love today, as well as Devontae Adams and Garrett Wilson, as Sheets mentioned. It's funny, I didn't get to many Rodgers plays, but I did get to the receivers a little bit in that game. How about you guys? Wait, how weird did you guys?
I actually got a lot of Rodgers in my build. I got a little bit. He's like now the 4th highest QB again. He moved up like 10. He's like 7%, I guess. Not that high, but
they keep re-announcing this every week. That I saw the thing come out at like 6:30 my time this morning that the Jets will likely draft a quarterback whether or not Aaron Rodgers returns. Last week it was Aaron Rodgers is unlikely to return next year. All these reports coming out, they make me nervous. But at the same time, it's like he still didn't play last week, Right. I don't know. So it's interesting. And just to some other like little narrative stuff today or not narrative, it's they're saying that Russell Wilson is likely to be the starting quarterback for the Steelers next year. These are things that like boost my confidence a little bit, but I'm not even sure they should. It's just interesting reports to come out. And then Brock Purdy is expected to sign an extension with the 49ers. That's the other one that came out just right while we were on. All right, let's move over to tight end. I'll start with you, Rody. Are you getting all of this Juwan Johnson, or is it just me?
Who?
I'm getting a lot of Juwan Johnson too.
No Taysom Hill?
Yeah. Well, not as much in the Sims. Like I know the blitz projection like loves them a lot. So if you use you're using Goldies, which aggregates a little bit. So it's gonna get a lot of Juwan Johnson, I think.
Taysom Hill.
Yeah, no Taysom Hill. That's why I like Kamara.
Oh, that's so
more
funny.
than-
I thought you said you get a lot of Juwan Johnson. No Taysom Hill. I'm like, no, I'm not going to get Taysom
No,
Hill. I'm gonna get
because
Taysom Hill.
there's no
Right.
Taysom Hill. Yeah.
So other guys I like Njoku in that stack. Jonnu Smith still playing pretty elite for 5,300 price tag. Kate Otten only 4,400, and that Bucks game, it should be a good game. Hawkinson's only 4,300. If you do, I'm getting a little bit of the Viking stack. Jefferson, Hawkinson type. Bowers a ton. Highest own, and I really like McBride today. Sims doesn't like him as much. I might bump him up a little bit. I'm only getting about 7%. I might be a little higher on that. I like that game a lot more. I like McBride. I hope he gets in the end zone. He hasn't really scored. He's been getting a lot of catches, but he needs.
I know he hasn't scored yet.
Yeah. So
I think he might have the most receptions in a season without scoring or something.
Yeah, it's crazy. So he needs to get in the end zone today. That'd be nice. So, and then a little Freiermuth only at 3,800. I like that. With that, I like that game a lot. So, those are just kind of the main tight ends that I'm getting that I like a lot today. So,
you guys getting any Jonnu Smith?
Yep, I like Smith,
but not as much as I wish I was. I wish it was getting more.
Maybe he's fourth on my list in Sims. I have 13%, so it's not bad for the build I got going.
It just feels like he's being he ends up like being the talk of the week, and then nobody ends up playing him by the time it actually comes down to it. How about you, Sheets? What do you think about
tight ends that are very talented? Like Brock Bowers is not the only tight end that can do stuff. Like Trey McBride. I mean, he's really, really good. Kate Otten, not quite as dynamic, but he gets target share. I mean, he looks good. If you're going to play that Will Levis thing, you could play Chig if you want, and then or you could play Ingram on the other side of that. So tight end is pretty. I don't know. I think you play a lot of different guys. I don't think it's just so easy. I'm just going to jam Brock Bowers and be done with it. I think that obviously he had a freaking. And he's been great, and he had a freaking just incredible game against Kansas City. But he doesn't have to outscore Njoku, for example. So looking through my other tight ends here, if there's anybody else I missed. I mean, I guess not too much more than that.
Yeah, and I actually think this week is an interesting. If you're not going to do the running backs in the flex, I think that actually using a tight end in the flex might, because there's a lot of good plays there. I mean, I like McBride. I like Kittle, by the way, quite a bit. Kittle, McBride, Juwan Johnson, and Kate Otten are my highest owned, with Bowers just behind them, although Bowers is by far the most of my actual buy-ins. Then I got Hawkinson and a little bit of Calcaterra. I just feel like the Eagles, it's hard not to have them. I mean, we've seen all these games with Carolina. There's just always so much scoring. It seems like whether it's Barkley, whether it's, Brown would be the obvious ones, but maybe Calcaterra catches one in the end zone, ends up with like 15, and he's like one of the few cheap options you have. The other thing I was flirting with doing, and maybe I'm overreaching because it's my team or whatever, but the only guys under 3K that I have any interest in would be taking a shot with either Davis Allen or Colby Parkinson, and because it's just something I thought about. I like that game. They're both under 3K, 2,800 and 2,600. It wouldn't shock me. Maybe you don't do it on the main slate, but maybe you do it in the afternoon slate. That's an interesting way to get different when all this chalk's going to go to the spend up tight ends.
I didn't dive deep into that. I didn't think about that game too much, but it seemed instinctively over the last couple of weeks that Parkinson was getting the work back from Davis Allen.
Yeah, but also we had what's his name played that one week. The other tight end, why can't I think of his name right now? But so they had a different starting tight end. But yeah, you're right. He did seem like he was getting the work back, even though it wasn't all that much work. All right, covered tight ends. We'll talk about defenses, and then we'll get into sort of some overall thoughts and stuff. I always like to fit, my stuff right now, all those ownerships, they're going to change a little bit because I always take into account what we say on these shows. But what are we getting to the most defensively, Sheets? And who do you have almost 20% of?
Well, I mean, the three defenses that for me make the most sense, and fortunately they all look really good, so no one's going to be like that high owned. Of mine, I won't get anybody over 20, I don't think. Are the Titans against Jacksonville? That's obviously very logical, cheap, and against Jacksonville. In addition to that, the Saints against the Giants. That certainly makes some sense. And then the higher upside, a little more aggressive plays is the Steelers against Jameis Winston. I mean, that obviously has it. That could backfire in a pretty healthy way, but it also has quite a bit of upside.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. How about you, Rody? What are you going for?
Yeah, I mean the Steelers is like top one. I like the Saints a lot, but they're very chalky. I have a little bit of the Jets at 2,700. I like Jags at 2,600. There was another one I liked lower on too. Titans at 2,800. Kind of spreading out those like mid or high end 2Ks, trying to find a cheap way. But I mean I have some Eagles too a little bit. 3,700. I have some 49ers. They get a lot of Caleb Williams takes a lot of sacks, so 3,100 is not bad for them. I'm really spread out. I've just kind of picked all those defenses there that I like. So
Yeah.
By the way, if you want to, I just got a little more exposure to a different quarterback. Just so you know, I was trying something else. And if you want, like, if this Titans defense becomes too chalky, you could play Mac Jones with the Jacksonville people.
Yeah, I have a hard time clicking the Mac Jones button personally, but maybe if
Brian Thomas and Evan Ingram stack with them, I mean,
it's the right guys. It's just like, when is this?
Right guys.
We've seen him 30 some odd starts. Has he ever put up like 20 fantasy points? Maybe once,
guys.
But I hear you. That's just maybe my own personal bias. But yeah, I think the Steelers and Titans are clearly my favorite. I actually am surprised the Steelers aren't getting more ownership. You know what? Sheets and Goldie have them a little bit higher. I think that's probably more accurate than where they're projected.
Yeah, SaberSim has Titans the highest. I'm getting them a bunch, and then the 49ers. So actually, Saints are coming in third.
Well, no, SaberSim actually has the Steelers at 4%.
Yeah, they have them a lot lower. Yeah, Steelers. Yeah.
I think that's partly why I'm getting so much of them too. Although I do love them. I don't agree that this is so getting Shrek saying Meyer could be a good tight end play. I don't like that play.
Who?
He's the other tight end for the Raiders. If I'm going to play a Raider tight
Michael
end,
Mayer, yeah.
Yeah, I'm not playing Michael Meyer. Anyway.
Do we have any other injury news that's
you get back? Go ahead, Brody.
Do we have any other injury news? It looks like Kendre Miller is active for the Saints today. I don't know what impacts that.
Well, it downgrades Kamara a little bit.
Yeah, I know Kamara's projecting with all the workloads. So, Miller hasn't stayed healthy ever, really. So, but they could get him some more work. They're only 2 games back, so they're still in playoff contention. Mostert's inactive, so that helps Achane.
Yeah, it's a big.
That's big. I got to change my regular fantasy lineup. I'm running out of running backs in my season-long stuff.
It was a bad week for it.
Yeah, bad. This is a brutal week of injuries.
Yeah.
And Kincaid's not expected to play. I think I mentioned him accidentally earlier, but I knew he was questionable.
Yeah, so we're just getting in a bunch of the news. Like Jacoby Myers officially active, Madison inactive. That means nothing to me. Mostert inactive. That means obviously Achane, which we sort of thought was going to happen. But
yeah, we thought Achane was going to be good.
Bucky Irving, who's banged up, is active officially. Josh Reynolds inactive. Kendre Miller active. That's pretty much all the news I've gotten in.
You want.
And Keenan Coleman's a game time decision. I know you want to play Shakir in that Buffalo game, but Keenan Coleman could be back this week too.
Looking at my builds, it looks like I'm going to have like 5 players from the late games in almost all my builds. So I'll just wait and see. I'm going to have to decide that.
Make some pivots later. Yeah, that's good.
Sheets. How about
oh wait, huge news just came in. George Pickens is inactive.
Whoa!
Wow. Yeah, that just came in 2 seconds ago.
I did not see that yet. Okay, let me just think about this.
That's a problem for me.
Okay, so
I built some hand builds with them earlier.
The weird part is they don't have a traditional regular route runner other than Pickett. Like Austin is more of a home run play. Is it like, are we going to be playing Van Jefferson?
Oh man,
Mike Williams has been there long enough for us to go to Mike Williams.
Oh God, Mike Williams is in our lives now.
I mean, I'm just wondering. That's who they've got,
Well, if we expect them to chuck the ball, man, I still like Najee a lot today. But I mean, wow.
I think it's a big bump for Najee, actually.
I think a big bump for Najee more.
Wow. Okay. So I haven't actually seen
that. And Austin's only 3,300. Wow. We got too much value on this slate, though. You guys shouldn't have any problem building lineups today. Tell you what.
Well, yeah, but this is weird. Like
cheap backs, cheap receiver. Wow.
Are people going to overly play the Austin because he's been the next most guy? But it's like the Rams. Like Demarcus Robinson gets more work than any of the other Rams receivers when Nakua and Kupp are healthy. But when they're out, Atwell gets the most work.
Yeah, that is weird. You're right. That is weird. Yeah.
It feels like it could be that kind of a situation. And I'm curious what the projections are going to end up with on that, because and actually I'm going to go lower on the Wilson idea. But I do think that, I mean, somebody's got to have to show up as value. I think it's going to be Austin, but Van Jefferson is not the most fun roster. Mike Williams is just a crazy dart throw, but maybe not anymore. Cleveland has been giving up big plays too, so that might be interesting. Curious where we're going to see Warren. And it's true, Divine mentioning that it's a bump for Jalen Warren too. It's an interesting pivot, but I don't think you want to go that route. Like, there's just too many other cheap running backs to not play the primary. It's a little bit hard for me on this slate. I just don't think I can do it. Wow, I was not expecting that at all.
Well, I mean, and then that's a down. So Pickens, I had him in some says it's so funny because it says here, oh, that was early. So he is ruled out.
Yeah, it's all over everywhere. Just got him ruled out. Yeah.
All right. So we'll run everything.
I got like 3 text messages from guys. Hey, Pickens is out. Like, yeah, I'm on the show. I see it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh man. Okay. Well, I'm just gonna see what they come up with, but I'm not really sure how to. You have like home run hitters and then your regular receiver in Pickens. So without him, I don't even know who's that role. Like I'm going to say Jefferson may catch like 6 or 7 passes today. That's possible. Maybe Mike Williams catches a couple big ones. I don't know. That's a weird one. And then Calvin Austin is probably going to be the one who looks the best, is my guess. Even though I'm not sure, because he's not a primary receiver. You know what I mean? It's not like they're running like little out routes for him. He's not going to get those little 7-yard Puka Nakua outs. You're going to get the home run hitters mostly. That's interesting.
All right, so I have so you want a 0.01% owned Millie Maker winner?
Mm-hmm.
All right, so this is maybe not, but this is these are the categories. This is what you have to think about. You have to think about someone's going to be 0% owned, obviously, and it's got to be at a position that, you know, is limited. In other words, people are just going to be drawn to like certain plays. Okay. And that's going to make them low owned. And so we're looking at the running back position. Okay. That's fine. So it's got to be a running back. Also, what would be really nice is not only do you get leverage against the running backs that you're fading, but also against like receivers that are chalky that you're fading. And then it would be also nice if there was some like kind of like weirdly sneaky news that nobody made a big deal about that might give this guy a little more work. So we're going to go with the hopefully 1% owned Amir Abdullah from the Vegas Raiders, with Madison out to get leverage off of the chalky Raiders wide receivers and all of the running backs.
Yeah, I hate it as always because I hate Amir Abdullah and I hate I just do not take running backs against Tampa Bay no matter the price. But it is a direct pivot. The question is, are we sure Sincere McCormick is not actually the primary running back?
No.
He just goes no. I think McCormick would be a little more appealing.
I don't know. He had 10. I don't know. Abdullah had 10 rushes last week and two targets. I don't know.
McCormick had 12 and 2.
Oh, okay. So maybe play McCormick then.
Yeah, that's the problem. It's like, what if they just did the split thing again? And and against literally
time share out. Do this. Okay, so there is Zamir White. Okay, so maybe so the timeshare's not. Okay, so maybe.
One other one that's active that I actually was waiting on is Jatavion Sanders. Look, the projections are not going to love this play, but if you've watched Carolina, and I've probably watched too much Carolina, I've been rooting for Bryce Young. And they're also always in high-scoring games, so it's usually fantasy relevant. Jatavion Sanders, I think, is definitely in play this week. Tommy Tremble actually got a decent amount of work last week. I played him in no ownership without Jatavion Sanders. He likes to throw to his tight ends, and Sanders and him seem to be developing a little bit of a rapport. So he's another cheap running back that I'm going to make sure I get at least 5 to 10% of and see where. But the projections are not going to like it. It's just one of those that you might want to force in a little bit of.
Well, let me go back to this Raiders thing for a second. The Raiders game is 1:00, right? So
yeah.
So at least, so let's put it another way. So it's a one. Let's say I played any of those jokers in the 1 o'clock slate at least. So if I played those guys in the 1 o'clock slate, they're still going to be 0% owned, and also they're not even though I'm not even competing anymore with Garindo and Charbonnet, I still think those guys are going to be 1% owned.
Yeah.
In the 1 o'clock slate.
Wait for who? Who's again?
For the Abdullah, those Raider guys.
What just happened? If you're playing in the early slate, actually, that's a little more appealing because you don't have the Garindo.
That's what I just said.
Yeah, exactly. That makes sense. I mean, I'm just repeating it, sort of thinking out loud. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Oh, it makes no sense, but I'm just coming up with some stuff.
No, it does. Because then you're narrowing the slate down to 7 games with the 2 other values gone. It makes more sense than it does on the full slate to me. I'll put it that way.
That's for sure.
All right, let's just see if there's.
So I wonder what's going to happen with this Calvin Austin thing, or this or Van Jefferson, or I imagine Harris is going to get a bump a little bit. I imagine that Freiermuth might get a little bump.
I think he should. I think he's actually the possession receiver now.
Yeah, I guess so. Huh?
Either him or Van Jefferson, because the other two, Mike Williams is the home run guy. Calvin Austin's a home run guy. They're not they're not the guys who throw it. Well, I guess Mike Williams, if he's good, if he's like good to go, could be the play. I'm pretty sure that's like something you want to have at least a tiny bit of exposure to, but I don't know. It feels kind of weird. No matter what, the Steelers, they're going to find a way to win anyway. Seems like every week. Mike Williams is an interesting one. I think I'm going to have to talk myself into this. We just know the upside's there. He's a big body. You can find him near the goal line, and you can find him on a big play. Like, there's a lot going there. He can catch one of the moon balls for 50 yards. I think I might have to take some shots with the Mike Williams. Ugh. What a world. Mike Williams, let's see what he sees real quick. Mike Williams, if I put, all right. Even if I try to give it, they're not even allowing me to do it, but they haven't updated the projections yet either. That's a weird one. All right. Anything else? Okay, so let's. I'll do my. I think Sheets probably has a different millionaire take, but actually it's a good one for the millionaire maker. That's definitely the Raiders idea. But I like the sincere if it was going to be me, although I don't love either running backs.
No kidding.
But I like the.
Is TJ Moore officially in yet? Oh, we
won't find out till the afternoon.
Okay.
Yeah, but I think he'll play. I really like the Caleb. So my not so hot take and my main take is that the majority of the winning players will come from the afternoon games. And then there's 2 games that are hot takey a little bit. I think Carolina is going to battle more than Philadelphia is expecting them to. So I like that as a little bit of a game stack. And my main thing is that you will have at least 3 players from the Rams Buffalo game on the winning lineup. Anything else? Anybody? Throw something out.
You know who we didn't talk about? I mean, people are going to ask probably. Did we talk about Darnold at all?
You know, it's weird that we haven't.
Not as much. We didn't know. I mentioned him a second, but not.
He was supposed to be like one of the real chalky plays.
I think he's going to be. But do we?
But I mean, you think about it. I mean, in a slate with the cheap running backs that allow us to play whatever we want. I mean, shouldn't we consider playing Justin Jefferson?
I love Jefferson. I don't know if I mentioned that one, but I do love Jefferson, and especially like I got to him more on FanDuel for whatever reason. But I like the Jefferson. Of course, it's hard not to like Jefferson here. But the only problem is Darnold's been good enough to where he's spreading the ball around, and Addison's just going nuts one week, and then you have Naylor the other weeks. Like, it's just been kind of hard. What do you think, Brody, about that?
Yeah, I mentioned Hockenson and Addison as, a couple little bit lower average off of Jefferson, for sure. But, you can play that game a lot, and it's going to be chalky, but I think it's a good game environment. So it's in the dome, right? It's in the Viking Stadium.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so definitely a good one to target.
Do we get maybe a Kirk Cousins troll game and a troll game?
Yeah, Kirk Cousins' game coming back, right? Yeah,
back to Minnesota, which is probably the only reason he's playing. Honestly,
yeah,
it seems like it would be the right time to bring in our boy Penix out there. But back in Minnesota, this is one he's probably been waiting for. If they find look, he's had 2 games all season that weren't horrible, basically, and they're both against Tampa Bay. Which again, shout out to McConnell for today. That's O'Connell, excuse me. Aiden O'Connell is definitely Tampa Bay will play in wild games. But I could see that. I could see like a certain path. I mean, Atlanta's extremely talented on offense. Maybe this is the Cousins day, and we just play a little bit of narrative here.
Yeah, and Drake London's getting some ownership too. So Cousins, Drake London, and Kyle Pitts at 4,100 for tight end. So like, I mean, that's a stack. Run it back with Jefferson, Addison, whatever you want there, or even Aaron Jones. Do a double stack that game up. Hope it goes nuclear.
See, back in the day when everybody watched the games, but like nobody, there wasn't any sims, there wasn't anything like that. There was barely projections when I was starting playing. You would have watched Kirk Cousins and people would have laughed at you for saying, how could you play him? Because he's literally been the ugliest. It's looked the worst of any quarterback in football the last 3 weeks. But it does. This is still a different week. The week before that, he threw for 5 million yards. I don't know. Maybe there's something there. Maybe one leg Kirk Cousins is a way to go.
So Van Jefferson is 3,200. How much is Austin?
33.
Austin is 33. And what'd you say, Mike Williams?
Well, Mike Williams is 3,800.
I mean, probably should play one of them. I mean,
yeah, it's
no. I mean,
it's hard. It's hard to know. I think Freiermuth is the one I like the most. I think I'm going to force him the
Freiermuth's cheap too. He's only 3,800 for Freiermuth.
Yeah, I mean, and Cleveland theoretically should have a good defense. They just haven't been, and it's partly been due to just the way their offense has been all year long. First with the never moving the ball with Watson, and then just the quick scores and the quick interceptions with Jameis. So it's been a little bit of a rough battle for them. All right, guys. Well, we'll get out of here. Rody, why don't you take us out of here? I'll update my exposures in there. And if anything really changes from a projection standpoint on Pittsburgh.
Well, it's going to have to. I mean, these Pittsburgh guys are going to.
I think it's going to happen a little less than
happening. Not really. Not yet.
Najee Harris has bumped up a little bit.
I haven't got an update.
I mean, Saberston still has Van Jefferson at 0. So
yeah, I haven't got any updates yet for me. So
yeah.
Guys, just check back. There'll be an update after noon, I'm assuming. So like 12:20, I'd really check the update by, and then it should be good. I won't build my Saberson main build after 12:30 today.
Hey, what do you think of? You think Chargers have a chance tonight, Rody?
Oh yeah, that game's on FanDuel. I do like that game with some lower total games today. Blowout style games. You can stack that game up. They've been throwing it a little bit more. The Chargers have been. So Lad McConkey's been good, and I think maybe Kelsey has a game today. But yeah, I do like that game. I did build a stack on FanDuel that game. Actually, the last few weeks, if you just stack the late game, you've been winning on the FanDuel.
Really?
Late game every week.
Well, yeah,
I'm moving up every night.
The Barkley 47 piece.
They've had 4 weeks in a row though where they've had the highest total game on the late night.
Yeah, so the FanDuel late night.
This is not a high total game.
Yeah, I just had to put a stack in for it because it's been doing me so good.
Yeah,
getting or a piece of that game in the late night you want.
Yeah. I like I like if McConkey's good to go. I like.
Yeah, you had McConkey in the Discord. Bobby posted his FanDuel build, had McConkey in it from the late game. So yeah, definitely get a piece of that late game tonight. I think it's a good idea on FanDuel. And
I love the Chargers as a straight bet for what it's worth. I love the Rams as a straight bet today as underdogs. I
like the Rams as well.
Yeah, I think this is a great spot. It's the Rams, and this is a kitchen sink. They have to. Why are they playing a late afternoon game? And then they have to play Thursday against San Francisco. It just feels like they should be. Actually, San Francisco has the same situation, but you're talking about a very, very short turnaround. Sunday afternoon late games to that. It's gonna be rough.
What's his name? Alex Baker. One of my. He's a low key really really great tweeter.
He's one of the best tweets. You and him are like my two favorites.
He really is, and. He posted something about the Chiefs. He says, every week the Chiefs should be -1.5 and -800.
Right. That's pretty funny.
Yeah.
All right, Brody, take us out of here. I mean, unless we have anything else, I think we'll just.
Yeah. So everybody watch probably I would imagine around 12:20. I guess I'll have the projections updated for this Pittsburgh stuff.
Awesome.
Yep, guys. So check back in, and as always, good luck today.